Good evening, everyone. I'm Rakhi Gautam from greytHR, your moderator for the session today. We are delighted to have you join us for the first episode of PSP Parichay webinar series by greytHR. Thank you for taking out the time and joining us today. Now, before we dive into the topic, I would like to quickly take you all through the agenda. So the session is divided into two parts. The first part will be a presentation by our expert, followed by an audience Q&A. Now, audience Q&A is where time is all yours, dear attendees. You can start putting across your questions during that time, and we'll take them up. Also, the session is currently being recorded. So if you happen to miss out on anything, do not worry at all. We have got you covered. We will share the recording with you once it is done. Now, moving to the topic, which is a masterclass on payroll outsourcing business, its strengths, challenges, and opportunities. So in this webinar, we will be exploring the exciting landscape of payroll services, focusing on the latest trends in 2023, the decision between insourcing and outsourcing payroll, the opportunities, and also the challenges for PSPs, and of course, the future model of global payroll. And to decode all of that and share his insights, we have with us CA Anurag Jain, co-founder and partner, ByTheBook Consulting LLP. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Anurag, for joining us today.
Thanks, Ragi. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so before we start with the topic, I would just like to take our audience through your profile. So Mr. Anurag is a qualified chartered accountant with more than 15 years of rich experience in advising clients on tax, social security, and immigration matters. Prior to co-founding ByTheBook Consulting LLP, Anurag had a diverse experience in working with PwC, BMR, KPMG, and Deloitte. He has advised larger and medium multinational clients on employee secondment arrangements, compensation structuring, equity incentive designing, and time-to-time support to clients on tax and social security litigations matters. So I can say this for everybody that we have the perfect person with us today for this webinar. Once again, welcome to the session, Mr. Anurag.
Thanks, Rocky.
Now I would like to hand over the session to you. You can take us through your presentation, and towards the end, as I said, we'll take the audience Q&A.
Thanks. So let me just share my screen.
Yes.
I hope the screen is visible, yeah?
Yes, it is.
So good afternoon to all, and thanks to greytHR and Raki for organizing this very relevant session on payroll outsourcing business. So just as you would have seen my profile as well, so I had the opportunity to work with Big Four organization, and my profile is more or less based on the tax and regulatory part. But from the moment we have started our consulting business, we have been receiving requests from the companies wherein they wanted to outsource the entire payroll to us. And the reason for that is, of course, our strategic partnership with greytHR, a very prominent payroll processing platform. But at the same time, what clients are looking at is what kind of a technical capabilities a payroll service provider brings, what kind of a diverse experience are they bringing, that they are not just simply processing the data that is being shared by the companies, but rather applying their mind, having all those data analytics around those bits and pieces of information, and then seeing the complete in a holistic picture. So I think that was one of the key takeaways in this entire sort of like journey of ours. And what we have seen is, again, from time again, the client were facing a lot of challenge with the payroll service providers. There were errors, there was time lags, there was technology related issues, and at the same time there was a talent issues as well, because the payroll companies didn't used to have the adequate manpower who can process a huge voluminous data provided by the companies. So I think today's session is very relevant to that extent in figuring out first and foremost, what are the kind of payroll trends that we are seeing in this particular year 2023? What are the challenges which are involved in processing payroll? Speaking more so from the India perspective, what are the common obstacles that companies face during the pay cycle? And then emanating from those common obstacles, how we as a payroll service providers can help the companies, uh, plus at the same time what kind of a challenges we also face as a payroll service provider. At the same time, because we want to keep a futuristic outlook for this entire session, we would also focus on a very niche topic, which has started gaining traction in the past couple of years. We will be talking about the global payroll solutions, what companies are looking at, what kind of a modeling can be done by us as a payroll service providers. So, I mean, I will try to keep the session as concise, as simple as possible, not getting into too much kind of a technical topics, but at the same time, highlighting the relevant issues that you might be coming across as a one of the PSPs. So let me just start my slides, and let me start this session. Of course, if you see this slide, there's a coffee mug, and it's quotes that I am a payroll administrator. To save time, let's just assume I'm always right. So this is the kind of argument that we also, as a payroll service provider, can use whenever we are having those debates with our clients. Of course, it might not go always in our way, but this is just a reminder that though on all the seriousness of life, we should always look at those lighter moments as well. And again, let me start this session with a couple of PJs as well. So one of the things that somebody asked me was, why did the payroll manager always carry a pencil behind the ear? Of course, I wasn't able to answer it. And they said in case they had to draw a paycheck. So this is one of the poor jokes. And then the second one was, why don't payroll managers ever go on vacation? And again, I wasn't able to answer that. So the person told me they are afraid that they will be coming back to a gross pay. So, so pardon me for my PJs, but I just thought let's start on a lighter note and sort of like break the ice around this session.
No,
So,
definitely. I think most of us agree on that.
yeah.
That actually sets like a very clear context, if I can say that for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, keeping aside the lighter moments, the role of a payroll department cannot be overstated. Speaking more so from the company's perspective, because not only does it ensure that employees are paid on time, which keeps their morale high, but the payroll department also adheres to the tax and employment law legislation, which helps maintains company's reputation. So that is the reason why we are having this today's session, because we feel that payroll and accounts, these are the, what you can say, bloodlines of a company. And many times we have seen that companies which fails to basically pay sufficient attention to these bloodlines, they collapse, they suffer. And invariably what we are seeing in today's scenario is that even startups who are not adhering to these common tenets, they are suffering. And they are suffering, the investors are suffering, the public at large is suffering, and a lot of money is going towards waste. So so that was the context that I wanted to lay down. Now let me shift my focus to what are the payroll trends. And if we talk about the payroll trends, every year we see those common payroll trends. Of course, during pandemic times, the payroll trends was more on how to provide a remote payroll solution, wherein companies are having their employees scattered in different geographical regions, not only within India, but across different overseas location as well. So that was one of the payroll trends, and I believe we covered it in one of our last year's session as well. But now 2023, pandemic is more or less gone. And now we are looking at a future outlook. We are looking at different interesting scenarios where if one would have watched the recently had Apple WWDC, which is Worldwide Developer Conference, we would have seen that Vision Pro concept that they have given. Of course, it would be coming in the near future, but that is a quite an interesting topic, and it would have ramifications from the work flow perspective as well, wherein the size of the screen doesn't matter. The reality, the augmented reality and the virtual reality is something that is going to be for real. It is something that is going to be deployed in the workspaces as well. So let's look at the first digital trend, which is the move to the digital solutions. Now, over the past 2 decades, there have been several key changes in payroll processing. And if we highlight or bucket it in around to three aspects, the most important three aspects that I feel has changed in past 2 decades is moving towards all-in-one self-service systems for the payroll processing. That is the first important change that I've seen. The second is the adoption of open APIs, which allow users to choose an all-in-one system or integrate an existing payroll system into a full suite of human capital management whenever increased functionality is needed. That is second important aspect that I've seen is a sort of like change happening in the past 2 decades. And the third and the important is there has been an increase in the use of the mobile capabilities for payroll solutions, allowing for increased access and on-the-go payroll processing. So with many businesses now struggling in the aftermath of the pandemic and a wide range of rising expense, business leaders are scrutinizing payroll to discover ways to keep costs down and eliminate waste. And this has led to a greater use of digital payroll solution and outsourced payroll management provider. And that is where we as a PSP come into picture. Now, payroll cost can be cut dramatically with the adoption of digital solution, which is something which we are practically seeing on a daily basis. And it can also at the same time lead to a reduction in time consuming manual tasks. So you don't need that much amount of sort of like staff, which was needed in the erstwhile era, wherein if I say 10 to 20 people used to be deployed just for simply processing the payroll on a manual basis, again, depending upon the headcount of the employees. Now that task is relegated to barely 2 to 3 people. So payroll cost can be cut out dramatically with the adoption of digital solution. And this has a knock-on effect on staff morale, because obviously the more you adopt digital solution, the lesser will be the errors, the lesser will be the time which is consumed in processing payroll. The ultimate output will be the timely processing of payroll, which will lead to accurate and a timely pay to the staff, which makes them believe that yes, they are important to organization, which increases their morale and also at the same time leads to a happier payroll team with a greater sense of job satisfaction. So this is first payroll trend that I am personally seeing in 2023. If we talk about the second one, of course, because when we talk about payroll and compliance have a symbiotic relationship. So staying on the right side of all employment legislation is critical, super critical for any payroll department. Advances in digital payroll solutions means providers are embedding those automatic compliances into their system. And this makes reporting much easier and gives business owners more confidence in the payroll system. So even smaller businesses regularly interact with different countries across the globe as digital communication has reduced barriers to trade. This means the payroll software will need to become even more sophisticated in the coming years to take those ever-changing regulations into account as well. And this is something that I will specifically come across when we talk about the global payroll solution, how even smaller companies are having different geographical footprint, and how a global payroll solution is the right answer to the challenges being faced by large companies as well as smaller companies. Second important is, of course, the artificial intelligence. And we are hearing this buzzword, we are hearing a lot of discussion. And in fact, in the past 6 to 7 months, there has been a leap of progress in this particular field. We have heard buzzwords like chat GPT, we have heard words like machine learning, the way Microsoft and Google are leading this entire chain. So the incorporation of artificial intelligence also into payroll system is another popular payroll trend. Now, if you ask me whether I have personally come across any companies which have incorporated these sort of technologies, the answer would be no. But if you ask me, are companies discussing about it? The answer is yes. There's a lot of discussion, debates happening within the companies wherein they are very much excited that how these latest technologies can be incorporated into their existing payroll system, how even the payroll service providers want to incorporate these latest technologies so as to provide a greater sense of satisfaction, greater sense of efficiency in terms of this entire process. So machine learning is another area which can anticipate what employees want from payroll and also enables greater automation to increase the efficiency of payroll team. Systems which are based on artificial intelligence should be able to identify areas of payroll inefficiency and recommend solutions to increase accuracy and reduce overall cost. So again, AI systems can also at the same time, it is not only about process efficiencies, but at the same time, AI systems can also help detect frauds and reduce those errors as well. Because it's a natural machine learning language, it helps identify the patterns of activity so that any discrepancies are spotted quickly, and this can significantly reduce the amount of time that needs to be spent on payroll duties. So I think if we see the common trends right now, which is emerging, digital is one of them. Compliance was there in the past trends as well, but digital is gaining a lot of traction coupled with artificial intelligence. Okay. Now, another important area. Now, I know many companies are not willing to let go of control regarding the entire payment mechanism, because what happens is, and personally, we also deal with that whenever we provide or whenever companies outsource their payroll solution, the payment part, and why does payment get triggered? The payment get triggered because the companies want to make process the payroll and make the payments to their employees. The company wants to fulfill their statutory obligations in terms of the payments of provident fund, ESI, PT, whatever is the state related legislation. So right now, by and large, this payment part is something that is within the control of the company. Companies wouldn't normally like to basically shift the focus, and I'm talking more so from the India scenario. I think I barely heard companies willing to let go of this control and asking the payroll service provider that you manage the entire thing or integrated it with the payroll system. Although we know that even greytHR has those functionalities in place. So very often payroll providers leaving the paying of employees and taxes to clients. However, modern integrated payroll tools now have streamlined this process. We are seeing more and more technology companies, payroll software companies basically incorporating in terms of expanding their reach and footprint with different financial institutions. So paying the workforce and statutory payments are no longer need to be a two-stage process wherein we advise and then company onward make the payment. It can be a very seamless process wherein as soon as the payroll is processed, the banks and the financial institutions are apprised and then they release the payments automatically. Technology is there. I would rather say sort of like there's a lack of or political willingness is something which is lacking, but now again, coming from the digital solution, artificial intelligence, I think a very natural stop is integrated payments, wherein companies say, okay, fine, we are willing to let go of this control because we know the internal controls are in place. They are so much solid. So we don't have to basically now make it a two-stage process, rather make it a very seamless as a one-step process. Now, another important aspect, because whenever we talk about payroll, accounting, bookkeeping, and all this, sustainability is another trend. And many people ask me why sustainability, because this is something that you would say, okay, manufacturing companies need to put in place, service companies need to put in place. Why does a payroll companies need to basically incorporate a sustainability? Because we have sort of like obligation towards our environment, and as a result of which we need to fulfill our zero carbon commitments as well. So the way we power our servers, the way we basically deploy our resources, that has to be done on a very conscious basis. And that's why sustainability is another trend which is gaining. We are seeing all those ESG, environmental sustainability and governance measures being put in place by the government across countries. And this is something that we as a payroll service providers cannot also escape. We cannot say or shrug off our responsibility by saying that sustainability doesn't impact us or that ESG is something that is not relevant for us. We are a part of that system. We are a part of our environment, as a result of which naturally it becomes a lot more sort of like onus is on us to move towards that pattern. And already we have been moving. I remember the era wherein we used to get those printed pay slips on our desk. So now we have moved towards those digital paper slips. I also remember when we used to submit those investment proofs manually going to the accounts and finance department and submitting those manual thing, and always used to wonder how companies used to maintain those voluminous documents. Now, I think by and large companies have moved away from that era and have started focusing and asking their employees that wherever they can submit their scanned documents, that should suffice. And I think regulatory and the tax authorities have also started taking that into cognizance, wherein now we are seeing faceless assessment. So whenever companies are facing those scrutiny or the individuals are facing those scrutiny, they don't need to carry those bulky documents. Rather, everything can be submitted online through their IT portal. So similarly, we are moving towards that part only, even as a payroll service providers. And I think that dream of having a paperless office is just a step away and a step in the right direction. And last but not the least, and of course, employee experience is why we are working on providing these solutions to our clients. And that is why companies deploy payroll service providers, because they want to have a seamless, simple, at the same time, a holistic experience offered to their employees. So developments in business now mean there is a greater focus, obviously, on the employee experience. And as I was telling earlier, payroll is no exception. So providing a positive user experience means adopting greater user friendliness and a move towards mobile enabled payroll process, which I think as a payroll service providers, as a technology platform, we are moving in that direction. We are already, I would say, halfway there, and but a little bit more concentrated efforts would basically make it a more sort of like holistic employee experience. So these were the payroll trends of 2023. Of course, these are my sort of like personal take. As a payroll service providers, you must be also gaining or gauging a lot of experience by interacting with your clients, by the kind of experiences that you're having. And just feel free to share what are your thoughts and experiences around it. Now, if we move to the second part will basically focus on what are the typical challenges involved in payroll processing, and these are the challenges which are typically faced both by the companies, and as a result of which, when companies face this challenge, that is why they would like either to have a very robust in-house payroll processing team or rather outsource the entire work. I would say there's a sort of like mixed bag, because companies want to have that control over the payroll process, and that's why you would see many companies who would say, okay, fine, just give us the technology, but we would like to keep it in-house. So again, no approach is right or wrong. It all depends upon your personal preference. The second approach is, let me leave the entire area. It's a business support services. Let me leave it to the subject matter experts, because of the ever-changing dynamics, it makes sense to basically relegate this entire area to people who are professional and who are specializing in this field. So again, two approaches, nothing good, nothing bad. It all depends upon the choices as well as the ethos of the company, how much control they want to let go or how much control they want to have. So Raki, I hope I'm going at a good speed, and just buzz me if you see that I'm stretching on a topic a bit too much.
No, I think what all you covered with payroll trends were very relevant, and we obviously wouldn't want to miss out on anything which is important. So yeah, it is all the pace is fine. I would just request the audience, if they have any questions, they can start putting it now throughout the session. Once we are done with your presentation, we'll take their questions. So if you have any questions, audience, please start putting it now. I already see 3 questions. So we'll take them.
And do keep sharing your experience as well, because obviously I would be happy to take your questions and basically answer it to the bestest way possible. But I would also like to basically learn what kind of experience you have had. Obviously, my experience would be different from your experience, but I would like to learn and see what has been your different experience and what are the kind of different solution that you have provided to your clients. So let's move to the second part, which is basically what are the typical challenges involved in payroll processing. So first challenge is, of course, coordinating with multiple teams. So payroll is one department which cannot operate in silo. So in fact, payroll department is a very multi-dimensional department because you have to coordinate with HR, you have to coordinate with accounts and finance, you even have to coordinate with the legal team as well. So it's a multi-dimensional sort of like approach. And so payroll team, we have seen as they spend countless hours collecting information from the HR, finance, expense, attendance management team, and even employees submit information like bills for reimbursement rates and tax saving report. So it takes a lot of dashing around to get all of this information on time and every month. And if you're a small business owner trying to do it all alone, it is nothing short of overwhelming. So that is one of the foremost challenge that companies face. And that is why the reason I'm covering these challenges, because first and foremost, identify these challenges, and this will be a kind of your sales pitch when you're making with your clients. See, these are the kind of challenges that your existing in-house payroll team would be facing, and how you will be addressing those challenges. So out of every challenge, you will see an opportunity, and how you articulate those opportunities and or rather challenges and opportunities both before your client is what will essentially make your sales pitch. The second is, of course, staying compliant with payroll laws. And this is an area, again, which can't be overstated, because I have seen many companies maintaining in-house payroll department. They feel that, yes, things are working fine. Maths is working. The payroll slips are accurate. Everything is fine. But then one fine day, I remember we did a sort of like a diagnostic study for one of a large tier one company, and we saw anomalies, non-alignment with their current legislation. And that is where we highlighted to them, and they were shocked to see that uh, uh, they were under the belief that they are very much compliant. But as soon as that study was done, the result was quite shocking for them. And they told that they never expected the kind of exposure that they were sitting on. So this is a second challenge faced by companies, how to stay compliant with the payroll laws. Because again, payroll laws is not only taxation, it covers tax, it covers PF, ESI, professional tax. In jurisdiction we are based in Gurgaon, so we have labor welfare fund. Many companies are not even aware that they are required to make a mandatory contribution towards labor welfare fund. PT laws is something which is very dynamic now in case of a remote working scenario. How the PT laws would work. ESI, PF, again, PF is a very sort of like a scheme which is very centric towards employees. They have no limitation period, so they can backtrack and examine your records for 9, 10, 15 years, depending upon wherever they feel has been a non-compliance. So staying compliant with the payroll laws is something which is very essential for companies, and that is where we as a payroll service provider come into picture, wherein if we are able to demonstrate that yes, we are conversant with the law, how we keep ourselves updated, but at the same time, how we will be keeping the organization updated as well, is another important area. The third challenge is caring for the employees' morale. And again, the reason for that is that employees expect to get paid on time for their time and work. A small paycheck misstep can affect their trust in companies and might be what makes them decide to leave. So this is something which I don't think accounts and taxation department would be focusing on payroll, but this is something which will be very much observed by the HR fraternity. Because whenever those attrition happen, they would obviously like to have those exit interviews and try to understand why the people are leaving. Besides the obvious reasoning of having those non-alignment with their managers, but at the same time, payroll is another reason, because many times I've seen that companies come to us and say, we have a double-digit attrition, and the reason for that is because either we have not adequately structured our compensation, or we have not organized our payroll, and it has not been structured in a way that we can timely process the payroll or accurately process the payroll. So the minute as an employee you get to know that companies are not able to cover these basic foundation, they get a bit jittery, and they would obviously leave the ground to move towards companies which are having a better foundation in place. So this is a third challenge that I see companies are having. This is where our sales pitch can make things or cover these aspects. If we talk about dependency on the legacy methods is again companies still thinking that they don't need to put up or they don't need to invest in technologies. They still can go with the manual payroll processing, or Excel is a sort of like a God's answer to this entire payroll thing. So Excel is something which is going to be solving everything. Unfortunately, that is a incorrect notion by the companies, and many times we have seen that companies who build their entire payroll process around spreadsheets, when the cards start falling, then they realize that things were not being properly put in place. There was a lot of manual intervention, and what we have seen is the greater the manual intervention, the greater will be the chances of the errors. So that is another area that we have seen, and we have seen companies sometimes say, okay, fine, everything is fine. We have put in place a very good sound mechanism and internal controls are there in place. But again, it all comes down to us, wherein we say, okay, fine, let us do a diagnostic study. Let us see whether you are on a right track or not. And another good sort of like experience that we had is sometimes what we do is whenever we approach a companies, of course, companies would say, okay, fine, everything is going good. But what we say is just hand us couple of the information. We go through the information, and this is something that we do on a pro bono basis as well. When you say, look, let us have a look at your information. We are ready to sign all those non-disclosure agreements and all those things. But let us have a peek into your different information structure, and then we'll let you know what kind of problems you might be sitting on. Yeah. So again, this is something that cannot be overstated. This is something that companies need to have a look, and they cannot just simply rely on legacy method and say, okay, fine. If something is not broken, let's not try to fix it. If we talk about the fifth challenge, and this is something which is gaining quite a lot of traction, we are seeing a sort of like a trailer of this. Last year, the government released the data protection bill. Now they're working on it. They've got a good amount of feedback from various stakeholders. And so maybe this year or maybe next year, we might be seeing the Data Protection Act. And the reason for that is we have experienced is, if you look across different geographies, privacy is something that government are taking very seriously. And data privacy is not only the information which is exchanged between companies, but rather the information that is gathered by the company from their employees and what they do with that information. Okay, so data confidentiality is something which with many companies might say, okay, look, not applicable to us. It's applicable to listed companies, or something not relevant. I would rather say that is again an incorrect notion. Data confidentiality means how your salary data of your employees, how the salary data of your senior stakeholders are being managed, are the internal mechanism or the internal controls are in place, so that whenever those leakages happen, it is detected on a real-time basis and it is addressed then and there only, rather than doing a post-mortem analysis. And that is where we as a payroll service provider come into picture, because all those data confidentiality agreements are first and foremost a tenet, or rather one of the forte of our engagement agreements. Okay. The second important fact is, when we engage with the companies, we let them know that your data is sacrosanct with us. How we keep and manage those data is by putting those technologies in place. We don't use pirated softwares. We rely on a platform like greytHR, who will be servicing us. greytHR also has those encrypted technologies in place, and that's why when we connect, and Rakhi, this is for you as well. Whenever we collaborate with greytHR, we have got that level of comfort wherein we know that data privacy and data confidentiality is something that is taken very seriously by greytHR, and all those policies, all those structures are already in place. And that is why all those certifications are also in place, which lays emphasis that yes, you're going to be dealing with an organization which treats your data as their data and treat it in a very confidential way.
Definitely. I mean, that's what we take pride in, great HR. We
Hmm.
are very compliant. We are also very up to date with all the technologies that you're mentioning, like how AI and ML is, coming into picture. And you mentioned about, depending on legacy methods. I think it's very important, like you said, okay, people treat Excel as God and Excel is going to do everything for us. But that's obviously not, the point here is because when we say legacy method, if you look, say, decades back, we were using, physical pages, copies for that. Then we migrated to Excel. So now it's time to, actually move to newer technologies that are coming up, which will streamline our processes, make things easier for us, and also help us stay compliant with all the, laws, labor laws, payroll laws that are there. In fact, I think all these challenges that you mentioned, it's also very connected. It's very integrated. You said about data confidentiality. You
Hmm.
also mentioned how when we talk about data confidentiality, it's not just like, we as a PSP business, we take our clients' data. It's also the employees' data. And when we are securing that data with us, and we secure that, and it's very compliant and everything, we also take care of our employees' morale automatically. So it's
Yeah.
very important that we have this integration between all these challenges. And you rightly mentioned that when there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. So we have to identify that opportunity to be at the top of the game with this PSP businesses.
At the same time, Raki, data confidentiality also becomes important because once the Data Protection Act sees the light of the day, and this I'm gauging from my experience in working with overseas jurisdiction as well. I saw something happening in Singapore wherein they have all these data protection laws in place, and in case companies don't comply with it, or even third-party vendors like us don't comply with it, there are severe penalties.
Penalties,
So again, at the same time, this is something that we need to overstress again and again with the organization, that you have to put all those data privacy laws in place. You have to set up a data privacy committee as well, just like we have for POSH and all those other the different streams as well. But data confidentiality and all those committee needs to be put in place, and how you handle your employees' data, so that their data is not exploited by some third party, and then they start receiving all those random calls. They start receiving those random calls from be it your sales guys, be it your even placement consultants. So many times what we have seen is, whenever these data are leaked, you will get an ad hoc call from a placement consultant that we know what you are getting as a salary, which is very shocking, the way organizations are
and it's
treating.
also not right.
And it is not right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
So these are the challenges, and this is something that we use these challenges as an opportunity, and how we address that is sort of like how we are able to capture clients' attention and make them understand that why it becomes important for them to pay attention, and then decide whether they want to make it in source or outsource the entire solution around it.
Yeah, I think we could call it like, I saw some question here about what are these parameters that we should keep in mind while outsourcing, like, PSP. So I think these are the issue, like, keys that we have to keep in mind while we recruit anybody from, like, outsource payroll. When we see, okay, they are compliant, they have
Hmm.
this data protection there, they're using the latest technology. So I
Hmm.
think those would be, some of the parameters that we should definitely keep in mind.
Right. So I can't jump to answer the queries, but let me cover the portion first, and then we
Yes,
have
definitely,
10-15 minutes on the question part as well. Yeah.
definitely.
So I'll run quickly through this India common obstacles. What are the common obstacles that we in India face during pay cycle? Because I think our payroll service providers, our colleagues would be well versed with it. But just for the sake of completeness, I'm covering this. So collecting investment declaration proof is one of the common obstacles, because the investment declaration is a form which typically asks the employees, or the employees are required to submit at the beginning of each year to detail their investment plans and assess certain tax exemption and deduction. Now, how the payroll departments need to make sure how to submit their declaration, collect them in a timely manner to avoid disruption or the tax related confusion at the end of the year. So this is one common obstacle that in India we face in terms of collection and verification of those investment proofs. The second is the new hire. So whenever a new employee is hired, the new employees payroll team must obtain tax details pertaining to their previous employer, details which will allow the employee to be taxed correctly in the new role. Otherwise, what we have seen is those gaps come, and when the employees are filing the tax return, they see that there has been a short tax withholding or the proper compliance has not been done. The third important area or the common obstacle is around the levers. Again, just like new hires, the levers also fall in that category, wherein all those funding, full and final settlement and all those things have to be done on time. Keeping in view the labor legislation, I've seen companies who settle the gratuity after 2 months, 3 months, whereas the statutory timeline is to pay the gratuity within a period of 30 days. So all those compliances, all those prescribed statutory timelines are also something that companies have to basically make sure. The fourth important common obstacle is around the flexi basket. So depending upon the compensation structure, how they have structured their flexible basket, how are they aligned with the current tax regime or not? We are now seeing that the government is very keen to move from old tax regime to the new personal tax regime. Obviously, there will be a loss of benefits and exemptions and deduction, but at the same time, the tax rates is going to be reduced. So flexible benefit is something that we are seeing. The days of flexi basket might be numbered. This is my personal view, because I'm seeing this trend that the organization, or rather I would say government, wants to move to a simplified tax regime, wherein you are just getting taxed at a very nominal rate, but at the same time, at the end of the day, you lose out on your tax deductions and exemption. So they want to keep things simple, because the tax benefits or the flexi basket come with their own nuances in terms of maintaining those documentations and all those policies in place. Filing returns, again, this is I would say obstacle. Why? Because it needs to be filed on time, but at the same time, an individual might not be able to file their return because they haven't received the information from the company on time, which is typically a Form 16, all those relevant information. So again, processing payroll, if it is processed on timely basis, the taxes are filed on timely basis, the quarterly returns are filed on timely basis, that will help in timely generation of Form 16, which will help the individuals in timely filing of their returns. So this is how the information or the workflow flows. And these are the sort of like one of the areas of obstacles. Provident fund. So provident fund is another area, because payroll departments, have a number of duties and responsibilities, and they should be familiar with the process of communicating with the PF authorities. And these teams must also take care of employees, know your KYC obligations, and how to onboard the new hires or handle any PF transfers, withdrawal, and advances. So all those areas, something that a payroll team needs to cover from their end. And last but not the least is, of course, the labor and the employment legislation, which focuses on taxes, insurance, and labor welfare fund. So this is something that the payroll department has to ensure that they are up to date with the current legislation. What are the nuances? What are the statutory filing obligations that they need to fulfill? So these are the common obstacles that from India region that one may face. Again, you may see as an obstacle. I would rather see it as an opportunity. So wherever companies are not complying with this, I would rather say, leave it to the subject matter experts. We know what we are doing at the end of the day. We are abreast with the current legislation. We know how to keep you updated, and that is where we normally harp upon, wherein client might not be having the necessary bandwidth or the resources to keep themselves abreast of these legislation. And so, if we talk about the payroll outsourcing, why companies should, or why we should tell companies to outsource the payroll. So first and foremost is saving of time. The companies can save time and focus on other important initiatives such as product development, customer service, and basically essentially focus on the business, and leaves this support services part to providers like us. The second important area is, of course, minimizing the payroll errors. So outsourcing payroll helps the companies in minimizing the payroll errors, because we are the subject matter experts. We know how to use the technology or engage with the right technology, which is error-free at the same time, which is efficient and covers the labor-intensive aspects of the payroll. Improved security is another, because again, it is stemming from the data confidentiality aspect. So organization might not be having that bandwidth or that resources wherein they can process the payroll, at the same time keep themselves abreast of or how to improve the security, data security, and technology security around it. So what we can guarantee as a payroll service provider is that we engage with a reputable service provider, reputable technology service provider, which provides a robust security solution and help in safeguarding the confidential data. Maintaining compliance. Again, I have harped on this in my previous slides as well. So maintaining compliance is something that payroll service providers are more well adept to basically cover this particular area. Data integration. So if we talk about data integration, it may sound a bit confusing, but by outsourcing payroll, the payroll service provider provide a place for the organizations to integrate the employee data, not only for payroll, but for human resource department as well. And this gives a sort of like high level snapshot of employees' pay, attendance, leave days, overtime, and length of service. So when payroll is fully integrated with time and attendance benefits and other HR applications, it improves the data accuracy and makes it easier to access information through a single sign-on kind of a facility. Employee self-service, again, as I was telling earlier, employee self-service is another reason why companies should look at outsourcing the payroll part to organizations like us, because what does employee self-service means is employees doesn't have to basically engage with any personnel within the organization. They have all the information available with them on hand. And now with the mobile integration, they just need to log into the mobile, use their dual factor authentication or whatever tools are in place, and access their payslips at any point of time. Make expense request, make leave request, submit their investment declaration. So this is the kind of functionality that an employee self-service portal should offer. And this is where we normally emphasize to potential clients that this is where you guys might be missing upon. And this is where we can act as a sort of like provider of a simplistic employee self-service platform. And last but not the least, of course, reduction of cost. Now, reduction of cost means how do you judge how much organization is spending on processing payroll? It depends upon the kind of resources that they've engaged, the kind of salary that they are paying to those resources, vis-a-vis what is the functionality or that they would get from providers like us, what is the expertise they're getting from providers like us, and at the same time, what is the opportunity cost that they would be working. And we have to keep in mind, the opportunity cost also includes the fines and the penalties that an organization might be implicated, because if they don't comply with any legislation, then there would be fines and penalties. So this is where we help that reduction in cost is not only the fee part, wherein you say, okay, fine, I used to pay my two resources 30,000. So this is what I will pay to you. No, that is not how it works. You quote your fees, and the way you negotiate it by saying that how you reduce your cost is not only with the replacement of those resources, but the added functionality that you would be getting, plus at the same time, the reduction in the penalties and the fines that you might be implicated upon. So these are the different aspects that you need to highlight to client, because normally they would do a sort of like apple to apple comparison, and they would say, okay, fine, no, your fees is too high. This is what I am paying to my current employees who are processing payroll, but this I'm going to be paying to you. No, it doesn't work out. So it all depends upon you, how you articulate it before your clients on the fee part, on the cost and benefit analysis part. Now, of course, I don't want to keep it a sort of like one-sided view wherein we say, okay, there's a lot of opportunities, there are a lot of obstacles that companies are facing, but we as a payroll service provider also face certain challenges. So I want to address it. And the reason I wanted to address it was because once you identify the challenges, then you can address those challenges, right? So it's always good to look at the other side of the coin and understand what are the challenges that a typical payroll service provider can face and how they can address those challenges. The first challenge is the compliance regulation. Because if we say I'm a payroll service provider, I know everything. Again, we are going back to that coffee mug of mine, wherein we say, okay, fine, just for the sake of ending this debate, I'm always right. No, it doesn't work that way. Because as a service provider, it is onus is on us keep ourselves abreast of what is happening, what kind of legislations are getting updated, and how those legislations are impacting the organization. And how you can do it is use of various means, having those right talents in place, wherein you don't do a cost cutting in terms of the talent. And that is why what I always tell my colleagues is don't do cost cutting in terms of talent, hire the best talent, make the best team that you can, because ultimately it is the team which is going to be interfacing with your client. It is your team which is going to be representing your organization, and it is your team which is if it is a right talent who would always like to keep themselves abreast of the regulation. At the same time, from the organizational, or rather say as a PSP point of view, the onus is on founders like us only to train our team members as well. So many times I've seen that people say, okay, fine, I'm the promoter of the company or the founder of the organization, I don't need to spend time on training my employees. I think that again is a very, very incorrect notion. You need to keep some time within your workday, wherein you sit with your team members, understand what are the challenges that they're facing, at the same time how you train them and making them motivated, keeping them motivated in terms of keeping abreast with the latest legislation, and have those topics in place, have those live discussion or interacting discussions with them, so that they are also feel motivated that yes, uh, technical updation is something which is one of the foundation and which will help them in their own career growth at the end of the day. The second is the rapid advancement in technology. So again, technology is moving at a very, very fast pace. We talked about AI, we talked about machine learning, we talked about chat GPT and the tools which are coming into picture. So if you say, okay, fine, again, as a payroll service provider also, we also get trapped by our own sort of like, you can say comfort zone only, wherein we say, okay, fine, now I know how to use this platform. I will use only this platform only. Okay. I don't want to see what is happening outside the arena of this platform. There might be plenty of developments happening, but I'm happy with my platform. The reason for that is because once you are in your own comfort zone, then you feel, okay, fine, I don't need to go outside. I don't need to see what advancement is happening in the other part of the world. But again, just like the dinosaur got extinct, so can we. So we have to keep ourselves abreast with the rapid advancement in technologies. So keeping abreast and at the same time, be ready to adopt those technologies as well. So there's always a learning curve, because I remember when these smart phones came into picture, people used to say, oh, it's something, it's a fad, it will go away. But we saw how these smartphones have evolved, how they have made our life so easier. So again, there's a learning curve for every new technology. But if you are willing to adopt yourself, the future is all yours at the end of the day. The third is the need for a greater flexibility. And again, it is stemming from the rapid advancement in technology that you need to be flexible enough, flexible in terms of adhering to the request from the client, because see, client will be client at the end of the day. They will always come out with ad hoc requests. They will say, okay, fine, I'm running against time. Can you do it? So at that point of time, you need to have a flexible structure in place. You cannot be very rigid and say, okay, fine, if the client is coming with the request, I cannot adhere to it because I'm not flexible enough. The minute you give up your flexibility, then the client would say, okay, this guy is very rigid. He doesn't adhere to my request, and he doesn't adhere to the timelines. So let me search for another service provider. So that is where you might tend to lose out. And that is where I always feel we need to be flexible and adaptable at the same time. The fourth important challenge, and this is something that I would say will continue, because we know remote working is going to be is a part of now life. Of course, we have seen many companies now emphasizing that yes, the correct model is wherein employees come, we have those team interaction. I'm all for it, but I feel in certain job requirement, remote working will continue to be there, particularly wherein you have working mothers, particularly wherein your job profile is as such that you don't need to be in the office at that point of every point of time. Now, if those trend is continuing to be there, then as a payroll service provider, again, it is a challenge area because managing these remote employees can be quite a thing, because you never know when employee has shifted from one state to another, from one location to another, and as a result of which the statutory legislation dynamics also tend to change. Okay, so how you manage this remote employees, how you keep yourself well versed with, because if an employee is moving from, let's suppose, Delhi to Bombay, there might be a PT requirement coming into picture. Okay, so you need to be well versed with the legislation, and that is why it becomes very relevant for a payroll service provider to know how to manage the remote employees. Data security, I think I have covered plenty around this thing, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Again, it is an area of challenge for payroll service provider, because sometimes we as a payroll service provider also don't recognize that we need to have all those data security mechanism in place. We might do a cost cutting by saying, okay, let me get a pirated system, let me use a pirated software. But at the same time, it comes at a cost when there is a data leaks, when all those ransomwares come into picture. Then we start thinking that why didn't we put those measures in place? So again, it's a challenging area, but it is something that needs to be addressed by the payroll service providers. And last but not the least is the availability of the right talent. Have those right talent, have those right team in place, and you will see your organization growing multiple times. So these are PSP related challenges. And once you recognize those challenges, once you have those introspection within your organization, once you see, yes, those challenges are there, but once you identify it, I think half the battle is over. I think you will be able to then basically mitigate or cover those challenges as well.
Sure. Before we move ahead, Anurag, just wanted to inform the audience we'll be taking your questions in just like another 5 minutes. So yeah, thank you for your patience, and yeah, okay, we'll move to the next slide.
So because Rakhi, I wanted to keep a very futuristic outlook, and because I'm well conversant with the time that we are already 4:59. So I'll just quickly wrap up on the global payroll solution part so that I can spend maybe 5-10 minutes on the FAQs.
Sure.
Okay. So for my colleagues, I wanted to cover a global payroll solution. And this is a terminology which has gained quite a sort of like traction in the past couple of years. And it is because, as I initially hinted in my initial slides, was the need for companies to have geographical presence in different regions of the world, not only within India, complicates the situation. And again, wherever there's a complication, there's a challenges, there is an opportunity. And the global payroll solution is one opportunity that is gaining a lot of traction. I have engaged with a couple of service providers who are looking at it on a very, very active basis, who are saying that, yes, this is the sort of like next version of how the payroll systems would be engaging, because you cannot look at payroll on a single dimensional perspective. It has to be a multi-dimensional aspect, and that is where a global payroll solution comes into picture. And what exactly is a global payroll solution is just to simplify the multi-country payroll management through a unified solution. And the challenges which were being faced by the companies are basically because there's a lack of standardization, because every country has their own nuances. There's a lack of data transparency, and then there is a very high risk of non-compliance, because companies, when they're sending their employees to different regions, now these companies might be having a legal entity in place, or they might be engaging through an employer on sort of EUR, employer on records, employee on records kind of a thing. So in such a case, knowing what is the regulations that needs to be put in place and what will be the reporting obligations of an organization, that is a challenging thing, because obviously a person who is sitting in India having subsidiary in different parts of the world, they might not be well conversant. But I wanted to highlight that the overseas country regulations are sometimes very, very stringent, and the liabilities and the penalties can be quite onerous upon the organization. And that is where the global payroll solution comes into picture. The global payroll solution will also address the challenge which is faced by companies of having a multiple vendor management. See, if as a company I have sort of like office in Africa, I have an office in UAE, I have an office in America, then I would need to engage with multiple service provider. But if I, as a payroll service provider, can provide a simplified, unified solution wherein I say you engage with me and I'll cover all these regions. So that is something which is very appealable to the organization as a whole. So quickly covering what are the global payroll solution, what are the kind of or the types of payroll solution. The first is providing a global payroll software, and that is where companies like greytHR comes into picture, wherein and I have been engaging Rakhi, just for your reference, I have engaged with Mr. Raoji as well, and I know there's a concentrated effort on the global payroll part as well. You guys have worked a lot on the countries like Dubai, and now want to expand to different geographical footprint as well. So global payroll software is one which will provide this solution. So it's a multi-country payroll software or international payroll software which will help business stay in control of the global payroll process by providing a very centralized payroll system. So what is the advantages of a GPS or a global payroll software is it achieves a payroll consolidation which solve the global payroll challenges like multiple vendor management and low data visibility. It also reduces errors and increases process efficiency by replacing manual tasks such as data collection. The second is the global payroll providers. Now, they are a tad bit different to independent in-country providers with regard to the number of countries they cover. So while the in-country providers generally operate in one country, so I would say as a PSP right now, I am a in-country provider. I provide payroll services for India only. But my aspiration would be to convert myself into a GPP, which is a global payroll provider. So when we do that, what is the kind of mechanism that can be put in place? One is having a own entity global payroll provider, wherein I will be having all those entities in place, which will provide payroll solutions. So it will be an entity, a ByTheBook entity present in Africa. It will be a ByTheBook entity present in UAE or Singapore. So that is a own entity global payroll provider. But then a better solution would be a partner dependent global payroll provider, wherein I will enter into those affiliate and all those agreements with a bit different local service provider and create a unified solution for our clients. So this is a kind of or a type of global payroll solutions that are there. Of course, we can cover, and this is something which would warrant a separate dedicated session for another 1 hour. So of course, in the coming months and lies with Rakhi as well, whether we can organize a solution or a session around this global payroll solution part as well, and cover it in more extensively and more detail. So that is all from my side, and let's quickly take some of the questions that we are seeing, Rakhi.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, let me start by thanking you for such a comprehensive, insightful presentation, I must say.
Thanks.
Like we covered everything from trends to challenges to solutions to the new technologies that are coming up, and then, wrapping up with the global payroll solutions. So, thank you so much for all the insights that you have given us. And I'm sure, and I'm certain that our audience has taken notes, because this definitely was a masterclass. So thank you, Anurag. We'll just quickly jump on to the questions now. So we have some 7-8 questions I can see here. Let's start with the first question. I think we have covered it, but if you want to, delve into it a little more, what are the key benefits of outsourcing payroll services for businesses?
See, I have covered this, but just for the sake of brevity, you see, whenever I basically make a sales pitch to my client, I tell them, first and foremost, the benefit is you will be getting a subject matter expert. That is the first and foremost benefit. The second is you will be getting the right kind of technology. And the third is, even with those right kind of technologies in place, you will be having those real-time updates. So I remember, I think few years back, even greytHR used to have those patch-based systems. So whenever any update, any tax-related update used to come, I remember greytHR used to send their personal or USB drives and all those patches to the organization, ask them, okay, fine, this is how we update our payroll. Now with a cloud-based platform, this has taken a leap to a next level. So now we can safely say to our clients that we can update the entire payroll system on a real-time basis without any glitches, without any bugs. So that is these are the three you can say benefits that I usually harp before my clients. Of course, there are other aspects as well, but this is something the three you can tripods that I usually like to cover.
No, definitely. I completely agree with you on that. And I'm sure so will our attendee there. Moving to the next question, which is, I think you covered it in the starting. Harihara Subramaniam is asking, is it not necessary to submit physical copy to income tax or PF authorities?
See, not necessarily, because now I think income tax department has again taken a sort of like very digital approach to everything. I remember the time when we used to physically go. So I'm based in Delhi NCR region. So we used to go to Pragati Maidan to submit those income tax returns. So I am coming from that era and manually filling off those income tax forms. So now it is, I think income tax authorities are also well versed with the digital platform. Many times, even if we go and submit a hard copy of the document, they say, why are you furnishing hard copy? You can just send it over email. So it is now not at all necessary. And when we talk it more from the payroll and the organizational perspective, now income tax authorities also recognize the fact that maintaining the digital data is a better solution as compared to maintaining a hard copy of the documents. Okay, so organizations have now basically adopted to this, and now I'm seeing that many organizations say, okay, you don't need to submit anything manually. Even those expenses, receipts, everything, just scan it, send it across to us, and basis the genuinity and the original documents which have been furnished or scanned copy received, we are fine with it. The pandemic situation has exacerbated this entire thing to multifold terms. Now, earlier the companies who were little reluctant or little cynical about this entire thing, they have also moved to a digital platform saying, okay, fine, let's submit the scanned copy of the documents, no requirement to submit the physical copy.
Definitely. In fact, like, you rightly mentioned, after the pandemic, we have seen such a huge digital transformation with everything that's there. So definitely that is there. And I think when you're using digitally, you're submitting your documents, it's more secured also. There's less chances of, anything negative consequences, I would say. So yeah, organizations are using that, and I think we will be continuing with it, as you rightly mentioned, with all the new technologies coming in. So moving to the next question, there's a question by Krishna. He's asking how to find a better outsource partner. I think you can just maybe list some key elements of a successful outsource partner there.
Yeah, so how to better find a payroll service provider, it all depends upon your approach. So if you're looking for a technology service provider, so I will not ask you to go anywhere, rather go to greytHR, okay? But if you're looking for somebody who can provide or who can assist you in outsourcing of the entire payroll solution via use of a technology, then in such a case, first and try to understand what is the pedigree of that payroll service provider. That is utmost important. What kind of experience that payroll service provider carries, and what kind of experience he has had. The second important aspect is how the team structure has been put in place. I've seen many organizations ask me the question that, oh, you're not based in Bangalore, or you're not based in Bombay, how will you service? I always tell them it's now no longer relevant. I can provide you the entire end-to-end payroll services, right from the onboarding to the separation of the employees while sitting in Gurgaon. So centralized location or regional dynamics no longer come into picture as far as selection of the payroll service provider is concerned. The third important aspect is, again, the right team or the right kind of a technical proficiency that provider is coming up with. So these are the, few parameters that you need to look at when you are selecting a payroll service provider.
Sure, I think you need to identify what your requirements are, and then go accordingly. As you mentioned, geographical restrictions are no longer there. We talked about the future, model of payroll, which is like it's going to be global. You're sitting here right now, you're doing in country. After a few years, it's going to be global. So that definitely
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is just for the benefit of the our colleagues. I know for a fact there is a company in Delhi NCR region. It's a US based company. They have centralized the payroll in India. Right now, their centralized COE, which we would normally call a Center of Excellence, is processing payroll for more than 50 countries while sitting in India. So they have put all those right mechanism and structures in place. So I went and met them, and I was trying to understand how they have done it. And they spent a good number of years. It took them around 10 to 15 years, and they did it on a pilot basis. They started with one region, made it successful, then they moved on to the second region, then third and fourth, and so on and so forth. So this is the kind of traction that we are seeing. And that is where, as I was telling earlier, global payroll solution is something that we should look at keenly, and we should find or see how we can best provide a solution to our clients on this front.
Definitely. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities waiting to be explored. So we just have to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So moving to the next question, Mr. Darshan Shah is asking, Hi, Anurag, just wanted to understand how fruitful will artificial intelligence or machine learning contribute in the efficiency in payroll process, and what threat does it pose with job security?
I would like to first answer the second question. Well, whether AI ML will pose any job threats, because I have read many articles. So I remember there was this one thing, there was one senior professional who told me that, look, Anurag, when ATMs came in India, or when ATMs were invented, people thought banks will close. That because that was the job of the bank, to disperse the cash. Mainly people used to visit bank to basically collect cash or deposit their checks. So they thought, okay, fine, the banks are going to close, our jobs are over. What has happened? So ATM has flourished, the banks have flourished more. Right? So what I would say is AI or machine learning is not going to take your jobs, but rather your job profile is going to change. Right? So rest assured, any new technology that comes into picture, it expands your horizons. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to be adaptable and willingness should be there to adapt those new technologies. This is the first part. The second part is how fruitful will AI ML contribute in the efficiency? Honestly, I've been grappling with this answer. One thing that I can short see is we know those chatbots are in place, but those chatbots have a limited functionality. Now with the natural language and all these machine learning coming into picture, the if any question is posed by the employee, they will never be able to gauge that it's a machine which is responding to them. They will feel just like there is a human who is sitting on the other side of the terminal responding to them. This is one use case that I can see. The second is in terms of the data integration, data analytics. That is where I see that AI ML machine learning will help a lot, because as we know, data is the asset to an organization, and how data will help an organization to basically understand is that few years back, what was the structure or the headcount of the employees, or the structure of the job description of the employees, or how much they used to pay. Now, if I want to do it right now, I can do it. I can use those SQL queries and all those things. But again, one needs to be conversant with how to basically place request in SQL and then to generate those responses. With AI ML, things are going to be that much easier to that extent. So, I mean, there are various use cases which can be there, and I will leave it to platforms like greytHR to basically figure it out and let me know that, yes, this is what we are working on this field. And I always believe that technology is always, whenever you achieve one thing, then there is always a next frontier which is there for you. So it's an exciting time for all of us. And I think in a couple of years, we're going to be seeing a lot of happening on this arena.
Definitely. In fact, I agree with you that, obviously with AI, with machine learning, and we have been hearing chat GPT a lot these days. It's like the most Google question is chat GPT going to take away my job? Which is definitely not the case, because, with time, as you rightly mentioned, we have to upskill ourselves as well. Technology is technology is an enabler. It's going to help us. It's going to, streamline our processes, which we only design. At the end of the day, technology is also designed by humans. So we shouldn't worry about that. It's just that we have to be very, we have to keep up with the trends. We have to watch out. And you mentioned data analytics is going to, help us track those upcoming trends which are coming in. And we should reskill, upskill ourselves that.
If anybody has watched a Terminator, I don't know how many would have watched. That's not going to happen to us. But at the same time, we have to be cautious. It's a new technology. It's bound to basically have all those bugs in place, and we have to be well conversant how to use those technologies. So use technology, but with caution and knowledge.
Definitely. With everything that we get, use with caution. That has to be there.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving to the next question, which is by Sumit Mehta. Outsourcing payroll is more for SMEs or the corporate too, as we have seen, due to security, corporate do not use, I think is what they're trying to say, outsource payroll, and they built an in-house team. So what's your thought on this? Is, what is the target market is what I think it's Sumit is asking.
The target market is, if we talk about big companies, I have seen big companies having in-source or kept a payroll in-house. I've seen big companies going in for the prominent payroll service providers. So it's a mixed bag. And I won't say that one approach is better than the other. Of course, I being on the payroll service provider, I would always like to advocate that outsourcing payroll is a better thing. But I would rather take a very, very pragmatic approach, because when I talk to companies, I try to understand what ethos have they built upon the entire organization. So if their organization basic tenet is we want to have everything within our control, then you talk to them, you try to convince them, they will never be willing to let go of that control. They will always like to keep the entire part in hand. But I've seen many progressive organizations now thinking that all these areas, and not only related to payroll, HR, accounting, bookkeeping, all these these are business support areas. And that's why we are seeing companies developing those center of excellence. Now, if you look at global, how global trend is happening, the headquartered companies in US and UK have started realizing that these are my business support areas. I have a right talent available in India, Philippines, who can cater to my business support requirements. And so why don't I develop a center of excellence there, wherein they can address my payroll, wherein they can address my IT, wherein they can address my HR part. So this is an approach that many companies are not looking at. And that is where we at India are at the right juncture, or the place wherein companies are looking at us as a bright spot. The second is those companies who are very conservative, who would rather say, no, for us, data is sacrosanct. We rather keep it within our control and goof up, rather than give it to our outside person and let them goof up. So this is another approach that we have seen many companies are having. Nothing right, nothing wrong. It all depends upon the person on the other side of the table. But always try to convince them that every coin has both sides, and if they are looking at things from their side, there's the other side as well. That other side is green or not, that is something that they need to decide.
Definitely. I would say that, it depends on your requirements. What is it that, you require, and then you move accordingly if you want to in-house or, you outsource. Thank you so much, Anurag, for that. I'll just take one last question and we'll wrap up the session there. So the question is, you did touch upon this, but, just to conclude this session, I would like to take this one question. How can payroll outsourcing help businesses improve accuracy and compliance with tax regulations?
See, if you outsource payroll, first and foremost, as an organization, you need to be very, very conversant, or very, very sort of like assertive in terms of knowing that what is it that you like to do. If you want to keep it in-house, keep it in-house. If you want to keep it, outsource it, then again, it all boils down to finding the right payroll service provider who can address the challenges that you're facing. And that is why whenever I go and meet clients, I try to address their challenges. I ask them that whether you are being serviced by some other service provider who was not able to address your challenges, or you had multiple fold challenges in place and you would like us to address it, or you are having an in-house team and you would like to now move to a outsourcing business model. That is one thing. The other thing is, On the regulatory side, whenever I go and try to understand, and that is where I always say that let us have a look at your information and data structure, and then let us see whether those are aligned with the current set of legislation or not. If and when they see that those anomalies or those gaps are there in place, they automatically say, okay, fine, this is something that we never knew. We are sitting on a lot of exposure. How can you help us in regularizing this? So there is another approach that one needs to take when they are basically conversing with the clients.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Anurag, for that. I think with that, we are done with the questions. We have taken almost most of them are covered. So yeah, I just would like to share my screen for some information that I would like to share with everybody here. If you can just stop sharing your screen, I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, just hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just give me a minute.
So I think we have stretched by 20 minutes, and thanks a lot.
I have to.
Thanks a lot, participants, for all your patience.
Definitely, and thank you so much.
The topic is quite so interesting, and although we are conversing in our own sort of like private space, but whenever having those live interactions, it helps.
Definitely. And thank you, for such a, as I said before also, it was like a master class. We covered everything, but yeah, as you said, there's always opportunity for more about those global payroll solutions. We can always, have such like more comprehensive discussion on that topic. See what are the types of different global payroll solutions that we'll see emerging in. So thank you once again, Anurag, for that discussion. And thank you to all the attendees as well who joined and stayed back, say almost 23 minutes after, it was for 4 to 5, but then thank you so much for staying in, having patience and, for such an active participation. I see we had a lot of questions. We covered a lot of things outside, what we had planned. So thank you so much for that. Also, if there are any more questions which were not answered, we have a Great Tribe community where you can post your questions. We have experts like Anurag there also who can guide you with the responses. And also, if you would like to write back to us, there's a email ID on the screen that you can see, rakhigautam@greytHR.com. You can write back on that and we'll definitely get back to you with the response. So thank you so much once again to all the attendees and Anurag for your time. And we look forward to doing yet another interesting topic with you in the future. Thank you so much once again.
Look forward. Thanks again. And everyone have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you so much.